Hi, welcome to the new episode. Let's continue from where we left in the previous edition. Last we discussed about exposure triangle, what is shutter speed, what is aperture. Now, in this previous episode, I forgot to mention this thing, but aperture also defines something else, and that's called bokeh. Bokeh, 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 whatever you want to call it. Bokeh are those different shade, mostly circular sort of balloons you see on your defocused areas. That is the shape of those things that is called bokeh, and that is controlling the camera with the shape of the aperture. Now, depending on the camera that you're using and the model that you're using, your aperture will have different shapes, and those shapes will define what color of bokeh you will get. It can be circular, it can be hexagonal. It totally depends on your aperture blade. Now, this can be controlled, overridden, and there's a hack for this where you can put a cutout behind your lens, but that's a different thing. Right now we are discussing about what we normally see in the photography and videography. So that's what it defines. So being on a topic of lenses, now apart from this, there are also other things we need to know about lenses. Another thing that's very important in your lens is the focal length. Now, focal length for the lens is usually defined in mm. What is this mm? Basically, it's a distance from the sensor of the camera to the point where your light angles, or it's the middle of your all the elements. That's roughly what's mm defines. So distance from that point to sensor is the mm. Now, what does it actually mean? What does it define? It defines the kind of field of view you will get. Will it be a wider field of view, or it will be narrow field of view? Now, both these field of views are important in different types of photography. For example, if I want to do a landscape photography, I need to capture a huge mountain range with trees or sun in the background. So that at that place, I would prefer a wider angle of view. If I'm trying to photograph a subject or a model or a prop, anything, then I would go for a narrower focal length. Why? Because it will compress the background. You won't see a lot of background, so you will totally focus on the person you want to focus on, and the very minimal of the background will be visible, which is in the focal length. Now, these focal lengths are classified and defined in different aspects. To cover it quickly, anything less than 35 mm is considered wide angle. Anything between 35 to 70 is considered as normal focal length or general focal length. Why? Because it's closest to what we see in the real life. And after that, we move into the telephoto lens. That's anything above 70, 75, 80, 90, 100, 200. So those focal lengths are considered as telephoto. Now, those are very good if you want to click something at the distance and you want a limited reach on the lens, not a very wide point of view, but you want to focus on subject at distance. Telephoto is the way to go. The thing is, these are the uses, but these are not hardcore definitions. So many professional photographers are guilty of getting into defining lenses with its uses. Like when it's wide angle, it's a landscape lens. When it's a telephoto, it's a portrait lens. Not necessarily. I don't be many people doing a good portrait photography with a wide angle lens. It's also called as environmental portrait. So it shows you a character, it focuses on the character, but also shows environment that it is in, and it gives you some beautiful output. So never fall into the definition, rather just concentrate on what exactly you're trying to show in your composition. Now, further, there are different types of lenses like prime lenses and zoom lenses. Prime lenses are mainly lenses that then has a fixed focal length. That means you will not be able to change the field of view of your camera. But the benefit with those lenses, it'll give you a good control over the aperture, very shallow aperture like 1.4, 1.8, something like that. Zoom lenses have variable aperture like 75 to 200, 35 to 38, 35 to 85, something like that. Those focal lengths in which you can make your field of view from broad to narrow. But then you will not have such shallow depth of field like 1.8 or 1.4 or something like that. You will have something starting from, the least I think you can get is 2.8, and it starts from there. Mostly it's variable, so you will have defined depending on the focal length that you are using. Your aperture will also change. Your maximum aperture will change. Apart from this, lens also have different shapes. Like mostly we'll see spherical lenses used for photography and videography, but there are also anamorphic lenses nowadays gaining. They are very popular because it gives you a cinemascope aspect ratio, which is very wide and It's beautiful to look at, and it also has some distinct characteristics, like it has specific shapes of bokeh that you'll get, and specific lens flare that you'll be able to achieve with that. So that's why it's very important to decide what kind of lenses you want to use, depending on what kind of output you will be delivering. Now, this was about lenses. There are also other parameters about the camera that is important for photography and videography, and one of those parameters is the HDR. HDR stands for high dynamic range. Now, what does it define? High dynamic range is usually calculated in stops. So these stops define what kind of detail you'll be preserving in your shadow area, on your darkest areas, on your brightest highlights. If you see very old outputs, you'll see that very quickly you'll lose the information in highlights and shadows. It has very limited high dynamic range, where you can capture only some amount of middle gray. That's middle gray. The range of middle gray you'll be able to preserve. Anything above that value, you'll lose the detail, and anything below that value will turn to pitch black. Nowadays, cameras have good high dynamic ranges. It also has some other detail that matters, like what kind of bit depth you'll get in your image, and what chroma subsampling. So it's usually 20222. So it's a way of compressing the data and merging the pixels with approximation. It's a easiest way to explain it. So those things it really matters, because it helps you, your high dynamic range, your chroma subsampling, and your bit depth. They will help you to push your footage in the post. So these specifications decides how much of ability you're gonna have in the post. Like if I shoot a video with 8-bit, there is a very small range that I'll be able to tweak. But if I have like 14-bit of data and a good high dynamic range, then I'll be able to preserve a lot of information and manipulate in the post as much as I want. That is for color grading or changing the look, turning night into day and day into night. So these are things possible only if your camera has captured that kind of detail with those specifications. So those things also matter a lot. Yeah, so these are the important things you need to understand about your camera and your lenses. Today I think we talked mostly about things related to lenses. So yeah, if you understand these things, it will help you really in improvising your photography and cinematography. Further going ahead, I'll continue sharing my knowledge. You might think that so far we have been talking more about, since last two editions, we have been talking more about technical aspects. Well, these are the basics, and they might not be the most important things to understand about photography and videography, but they are important. Like if you are learning to drive a car, the most important thing is to keep your attention and control and maneuver whenever you want your vehicle. When you go to a driving school, the first thing they'll teach you is where is the clutch, where is the accelerator, and where is the brake, and where is your gear. Why? Because you need to know these first to concentrate on the real important things. You can't just take your car on a highway and then search where is my clutch and where is my gear. It's stupidity. So that's why we need to learn these things first, so we come on the right track to focus on the things we are supposed to. So I hope it helps, and I'll continue to talk about these things further. Maybe on the coming editions we'll talk more about the aesthetic aspects, the compositions and everything. So stay tuned, and I will discuss further about what makes a good photo, what makes a good video. Yeah, so thank you very much. And you know it.